Essay Writing Tips: How to Write Essays on Different Topics. Basics of Writing by Maria Obydenna. Part 4. Towards a Philosophy of Writing. Audience Awareness and Intentional Voice.
Every writer possesses a clear understanding of their intended audience, knowing precisely who they are addressing and what their readers expect. No writer writes in a vacuum. Each word is shaped by an awareness of the reader's gaze. One of the most important elements in writing an essay is to understand why and for whom the author is writing. It is essential to understand the audience, including its primary values and worldview. In essays, writers often consider the most fundamental questions about human nature and socially significant phenomena, which, in fact, sets essays apart from other literary forms such as scientific reports, historical treatises, religious texts, and reference books. For the author, the audience is the readers for whom he writes. If you know your reader, you can make the right decisions when formulating your thesis and choosing your arguments. This empowers the author to determine which information is most relevant and worth presenting, as well as which stylistic techniques to use to convey the information effectively. Understanding the audience. The audience is a broad group of readers united by common interests or needs interested in a specific issue. Recognizing these shared qualities leads to targeted, impactful writing. The audience matters. A clear understanding of the audience is essential for shaping the content and tone of any written work. Whether you think about it or not, you always write for an audience. Audience is a generalized group of readers. Sometimes you know the worldview of the audience, and sometimes you write for yourself. One of the writing steps is to clearly define who the reader is and the reader's worldview. By considering the audience's values when writing a piece, the writer can make informed decisions about which facts to include, how to organize their ideas, and how best to develop the essay topic. For example, to understand the influence of the audience on the content, imagine that you are writing an essay for a popular women's magazine about the effects of nicotine on human health. What details should be included? What can be omitted? Now imagine that you're writing an essay focusing mainly on the negative effects of nicotine on human health, but your audience is teenagers. The two essays will be completely different in content, structure, and style. The author must be clearly aware of who will read the essay and why will readers read it. What do readers know about the essay topic? What is the author's relationship with the reader? Before you begin the writing process, take the time to assess who your audience is and what readers want to get out of reading your essay. Who are the readers? Maybe you have more than one audience. If so, how many audiences do you have? List them. What do readers need? What do they want? What do they value? What is most important to them? What do they care about? What text structure will help readers understand and evaluate the arguments? How can the author surprise the audience? What message do you want to convey to the reader? Defining an audience does not always mean knowing exactly who will read the essay. It is enough to know what the readers are looking for or what they want to know about to identify the optimal structure and style for conveying the content. It is necessary to understand that readers are shaped by the historical and cultural contexts in which they live, and the author's task is to skillfully combine their position, personal ideas about the world around them, and the reader's worldview in the essay. Imagine that you had an amazing experience. You saved a small puppy from under a car. You want to share your experience with 3 people: your father, your best friend, and a colleague. How would you describe the events? Will the description be the same for each person? Maybe not.
While the theme remains the same, each person is a different audience, requiring different, carefully chosen words and varying levels of formality, style, and tone. Your interpretation of events will naturally differ based on your perspective and experience. but bear in mind that you are sharing the experience with 3 different people for different reasons. The audience consists of trained and untrained readers. The important point is that readers can be very well versed in a particular subject area and know the topic very well. Will they be interested in reading an essay on a topic they are familiar with? So, many readers read essays for new information. Readers may or may not agree with your ideas and the author's position. Authors should take into account the fact that a certain audience may not be familiar with the topic of the essay. For example, you decided to write a reflection essay about the latest biotechnologies, choosing the topic, "Human cloning should be banned in the world." If you use terms like cloning and clone, readers may not understand them, and it will hinder the reading and understanding of the information. You should explain these terms or replace the technical jargon with words that the average reader can understand. If you have chosen a position on an issue, how likely is it that the reader shares your opinion? If the audience does not agree with the author's point of view, what arguments do you need to present in a clear, coherent sequence to help readers follow the reasoning? If the writer cannot explain the complex terms and concepts that his readers need to understand the content, the reflection essay will fail to meet its main goal. For the author, it is necessary to rethink the delivery mechanism and shift from an author-oriented to an audience-oriented essay. At the earliest stages of writing an essay, this is one of the most important problems the author faces. Considering the audience's preferences and level of awareness regarding a given issue is one of the main keys to effective essay writing. The level and type of knowledge the audience has will determine how much material the author needs to provide and what terms will require definition or explanation. For example, if an author is writing about age discrimination in the employment of older workers, what their audience already knows about the employment process and the concept of discrimination will determine whether or not you need to clarify these terms and concepts. Also, the author should determine the style of speech to use, formal or informal. Authors determine the types of their audience taking into account who are the readers, age, gender, education, economic status, political, social, or religious beliefs, the level of knowledge they have about the subject, novice, specialist, or expert, the source of publication, newspaper, popular magazine, trade journal, or online. The author needs to analyze the audience to communicate effectively and convey their thoughts on a specific issue. Thus, the readership, which should be taken into account when working on the text, can be defined as a group of people whom you want to inform or persuade. The content of an essay that has a specific topic will vary depending on the audience. In other words, a well-chosen topic is important for successful essay writing, but a well-defined audience is equally important. Authors often wonder if they should use slang words or abbreviations. Do I need to explain the terms? This question can be answered by knowing the audience. If the audience is knowledgeable about a certain topic, then the terms do not need to be explained. It is important for the author to determine the style of speech, taking into account the reader's worldview and values.
The reader's worldview. Worldview is a perspective that shapes one's most fundamental vision and understanding of the world. It serves as a mental model of reality, encompassing ideas and perceptions about the environment, a system of beliefs and theories, and an understanding of the world's structure and one's place within it. Worldview is shaped by the social environment and the conditions in which individuals live and interact. The concept of worldview has become increasingly prevalent in modern literature, especially over the past few decades. The reasons for the growing popularity of the worldview are that it allows us to understand why people believe in certain ideals and moral principles, and why they choose certain behavior in their social environment. When writing an essay, understanding the reader's worldview helps the author consider the reader's attitude toward the world. A reader's worldview refers to the framework through which they perceive reality, their beliefs, values, thoughts, and behavior patterns. Actions and motivation reflect a person's worldview. Readers may have different worldviews or a combination of several types of worldviews.
The main types of worldviews are mythological, religious, philosophical, scientific, artistic, and humanistic. Different worldviews may encompass a person's beliefs and ideas about the world, yet these elements are not always internally coherent or logically connected. One way to become a better writer is to be well versed in your reader's culture and traditions. It is advisable to write essays with the reader's worldview in mind, as this allows the writer to tailor arguments, tone, and structure for greater resonance and impact. When authors take into account a person's cultural characteristics and worldview, they can influence the audience's emotions. A person's worldview affects every area of life, including decisions about what is right and wrong and what is good or bad for a particular person. If the reader has a religious worldview, the moral basis of faith shapes the model of behavior a person chooses in a given situation, and the reader's worldview encompasses their core beliefs and interpretive stance toward reality. Individuals may hold adjacent beliefs that coexist without logical cohesion, revealing the layered nature of the worldview. For example, if the reader believes that everything in the world happens by chance and there is no connection between the internal and external forces of nature, it is inappropriate to write about the meaning of life, the afterlife, karma, or reincarnation. Readers will not understand the author's ideas or be interested in the essay. It should be noted that many people make decisions solely on the basis of their worldview. The author should understand that no one is perfect. Each reader lives according to their personal beliefs. A person's worldview is influenced by many factors, including inherited characteristics, past experiences, life situations, values, attitudes, and habits. The key issues that make up the worldview can be shared by many people in a community or society. Other elements of the worldview differ among people. A person begins to form their worldview in childhood through interactions with family members and communication with peers at school and with friends. In recent years, media culture has played a key role in shaping the worldview. Modern culture is saturated with powerful media images that shape a person's worldview through movies, television, commercials, and music.
What the audience watches, listens to, and reads affects how society thinks. Consumption of entertainment with false, socially, and morally significant ideas inevitably distorts the reader's view of the world. An adult reader has a formed worldview, but it can change throughout life. If the author's thinking conflicts with the reader's thinking, the author can reject the wrong ideas and replace them with ideas shared by the reader. Different authors use slightly different approaches, but all written works provide fundamental answers to important life questions. In an essay, the author is responsible for substantiating their ideas with logical reasoning and relevant evidence. Justification is a purposeful, reader-oriented opinion based on available knowledge and facts about the environment. Therefore, reasoning about life or a phenomenon begins with analyzing available knowledge of the world, presented to the reader through the prism of the author's personal beliefs. The basis of fundamental human knowledge about the world is not only the basis of deductive reasoning that leads to action, but is the basis of all reasoning, providing value norms for establishing the cognitive goals that the mind works to achieve, and for choosing the rules by which the mind operates. When writing an essay, the author can use both inductive and deductive approaches. With the help of inductive thinking, a person thinks from the perception of small parts of the general whole and other specific knowledge to a more general one. Through deduction, a person summarizes specific knowledge. Throughout life, a person develops not only individual thoughts and beliefs, but also increasingly basic, general, and fundamental knowledge, on which specific judgments and understandings of various manifestations of human life are based.
An essay may include the views, biases, and explanations of the author. When writing an essay, the writer takes a position and presents a distinct perspective for the reader to consider. Author's style and stance. Author's style, a complex concept. Each paragraph of the essay reflects the thoughts and stance of the author. Opinion and stance show how the author reveals himself to others. The author's stance and opinion can be explained as a combination of the writer's personality and his attitude toward the topic he conveys to the reader. However, it is difficult for a beginner to identify the author's stance and style in an essay. In addition, the author must write taking into account the requirements of the time for language and linguistic means. Author style. An author's style refers to the distinctive set of artistic techniques and expressive devices they employ in their creative work, elements that set their writing apart from that of other authors. Style, in the broadest sense, is a specific way, method, or technique that a person uses when creating something. Style in literature is the way an author uses certain words and stylistic devices to tell a story. This is the writer's way of expressing his personality in the essay.
7 components that affect a writer's style: choice of vocabulary, punctuation marks, sentence structure, tonality, emotional component, figurative language. Rhythm is achieved using alliteration, assonance, anaphora, epiphora, and onomatopoeia. Every author has a unique style that cannot be taught. However, the author can improve it by reading other authors, using a wider range of literary devices, and considering a broader range of writing practices. The author should not supply readers with complete factual information on a certain issue. The author's opinion may reflect life experience, education, or philosophical values. The author's style does not convey emotions or personal experience, but rather clarity, conciseness, and the accuracy of the material. The author's style development requires practice and time. The more you write, the more perfect your writing style will be. Excessive use of quotations or unnecessary paraphrasing of other people's thoughts indicates that the author has difficulty with personal style. The use of the first person establishes the writer's presence within the text, signaling a personal engagement with the subject matter. The use of first or third person depends on the discipline. The first person can be used in reflective and descriptive essays. It is appropriate to use the third person and the passive voice in argumentative and informative essays. Your writing style is revealed in your writing. For aspiring writers, the main challenge is to start polishing your style. Basic strategies for cultivating an author's unique style: read a lot, avoid using excessive specialized vocabulary, adhere to textual features. They may differ depending on the discipline. Your personal voice as the author must be supported by arguments. Pay attention to counter-arguments. Avoid broad generalizations. Get feedback from a more experienced author. An author's style may be characterized by expressiveness, revealing emotional depth, personal voice, and nuanced tone. The use of metaphors, for example, will emphasize the author's personal position and give the reader an opportunity to understand who you are and what is important to you. The use of emotional and figurative vocabulary will help readers understand how the author perceives a phenomenon, how he relates to a famous person, what the event means to him, how he perceives the world, or how he connects a particular event to his life. Illustrative language contributes to mood by enriching event descriptions and employing vivid, emotionally resonant expressions.
When working on an essay, authors often focus on 3 main goals: to summarize, analyze, and evaluate a certain phenomenon or event. At the same time, the author must take their readers' needs and interests into account. What do readers know about the topic? Can readers respond emotionally to the essay? What do I want readers to do, think, or feel? To write an interesting essay, Writers must tailor their language to suit the needs, expectations, and background of their intended audience. In other words, switch to the language of the reader. A person's worldview can change based on new experiences. It is important to note that when acquiring knowledge about the environment, readers often question the veracity of information about the world. Therefore, they revise their personal beliefs and ideas from time to time. Readers often question the credibility of new information and concepts because they conflict with their worldview. The author's position within the text. The author's position is a specific artistic expression of the author's attitude to reality, a specific event, phenomenon, or question, and is supported by arguments and evidence. Like any person, each author has their own worldview, that is, a set of beliefs about life that shapes perceptions of reality, thinking, knowledge, and actions. The essay involves the study and explanation of certain phenomena. It can be quite difficult, and even more so than other forms of writing, since the essay involves reflections on the author's anxieties and mistakes in life, successes in interactions with people and nature, and a reflection on life experience. In certain cases, the author should distance himself from the situation and be as objective as possible. Although the author writes from personal experience and emotion, they must also examine the issue from an external, more objective perspective. The author's position within the text should remain unobtrusive, allowing the reader to engage with the content without being distracted by overt authorial presence. The author's "I" is a deep understanding of the objective aspects of an event or phenomenon. The central focus of the writing reflects the author's primary concern, whether thematic, philosophical, or emotional. The writing can reflect any problem, philosophical, moral, social, or political, which the author reveals through a system of evaluative judgments, moral ideas, and other ideas. The author's "I" depends on the author's worldview, historical, and cultural era. The author's emotional perspective colors the information. The author can express his thoughts through various concepts, judgments, and conclusions. In the essay, readers engage in decoding the author's stance, seeking to understand the underlying perspective embedded in the writing, as well as the author's thoughts, hypotheses, assumptions, and possible prejudices. When reading an essay, readers identify words and phrases that demonstrate the author's strong feelings and personal attitude toward a person, phenomenon, or issue. The reader is influenced by the stylistic choices. Based on certain judgments, the author makes generalizations. Each writer writes in his own genre, in which he strives to become a master. Sometimes writers can write in several genres. Reflection of human experience in literature is art. To reflect human experience in literature is to turn life into language.
Essay as a pedagogical instrument. Recently, essays have become a major part of formal education in many countries. To improve writing skills and test knowledge, school and university students are taught to write essays. But academic essays are more formal than literary or informal forms. Teachers use essays to assess students' ability to think logically, express their thoughts in writing, make judgments, and analyze phenomena. Essay writing assignments help teachers assess students' understanding of material and knowledge in a specific discipline. When working on an essay, students explain, comment on, or evaluate a topic. Academic essays enable the author to defend a particular position. But unlike free essays, they are more logical in structure and require more facts, evidence, and scholarly literature. The academic essay assesses the student's ability to present thoughts in an organized manner and to synthesize and analyze information at various levels of complexity, as well as skills in working with statistical data and scientific literature. Academic essays differ from other scientific works in that they give the author more opportunities to express thoughts on a certain subject. The author can influence the reader and help him understand his feelings and how the essay relates to other socially significant topics and ideas. Essays supply students with a structured platform to articulate their personal views on a given topic, encouraging critical thinking and individual expression. Academic essays develop critical skills and the ability to analyze information. Longer academic essays, over 1,000 words, are more debatable and require careful preparation and research. In some cases, they begin with a brief review of the literature on the subject. Academic essays require clearer definitions of concepts and terms that may be unclear to the reader. The author must include essential and verified facts in the essay, citations, and other supporting materials with reference to scientific literature. Scientific facts will help readers better understand the topic and the arguments supporting the essay's thesis. The use of modern scientific literature enhances the quality of the evidence and helps the author confirm his position and prove his point of view. Essay as a creative activity. For many writers, an essay is a creative activity. An essay is a form of prose writing in which the author expresses thoughts, emotions, and reflections using vivid language and personal insight. Writing skills are a talent that every author develops and improves. We cannot communicate without language. Language shapes how people perceive the world and also helps define the culture of any society. Any language is a gift, and knowing several languages makes a person more educated in many ways. The correct use of language helps the writer to develop himself, his mind, and his personality. Written language is unique in that it is a symbolic system of communication between people. Creativity involves thinking outside the box. Overcoming stereotypes is only one aspect of creativity. Other, no less important elements are the ability to experiment and use new knowledge. At the same time, creativity should not be confused with self-expression and artistic creativity. In order to write well, you need to approach the essay with the understanding that the essay reflects the specifics of the field of knowledge. The only rule is to ensure the author describes the subject as vividly and clearly for the reader. What does unique mean in this context? Each essay is unique because it reflects the author's experience, worldview, and beliefs. The intertwining of these three directions provides the unique content. Uniqueness always requires well-developed skills, the ability to interpret the world from a certain angle and set new standards.
Creative activity is a kind of art that is original and self-expressive. Any author's text or scientific research cannot be considered creative, since their main purpose is to present facts and not to express the feelings and personal views of the writer. Although research can be interesting, its main purpose is to present facts and remain impartial as opposed to the subjective presentation of the author's thoughts. The purpose of creative writing is to entertain and share personal experiences with readers. Creative writing can be described as any writing, fiction, poetry, or nonfiction, that falls outside the normal professional, journalistic, academic, and technical literature. Works in this category include novels, epics, and short stories. These types of works, respectively, have their own criteria, but also fall under the category of creative writing. Unlike purely creative works, an essay incorporates elements of creative writing while remaining grounded in analytical or reflective purpose. In most essays, the author describes events or phenomena through the prism of personal experience and worldview. The essay gives the reader an idea of the world and of other people's understanding of it. The author gives readers the opportunity to view past events from a different angle, rethink how those events affected their lives, and consider what the participants could have done differently to alter the consequences. Use your creativity and find your own approach to essay writing. An essay is not just a description of what the author has observed or experienced in his life. The author engages with real-world events and phenomena, reinterpreting them to illuminate broader themes or provoke reflection. An essay requires a description, analysis, and evaluation of the author's personal experience, serving as a medium for generating new insights into the world. Conclusion. With the right guidance and practice, anyone can develop the skills to write a thoughtful, well-structured essay on any topic. An essay enables the author to understand life, society, things, and phenomena from a certain point of view. There is no universal formula for essay writing, but each author can follow the most typical structure of fiction and nonfiction. In an essay, the author tells the reader about things not just by describing them, but through the lens of personal experience and beliefs. At first, by imitating your favorite writers, you will be able to write good essays by borrowing a certain model of writing. And then you will write an essay based solely on your own preferences and experiences. Some writers have a natural talent for writing fiction and nonfiction, including essays. They do not spend much time and energy on developing their writing skills, but they improve their skills throughout their lives. Even experienced writers find time to learn about new methods of working on literary works. The myth of talent for writing often prevents novice authors from improving their writing skills. However, experienced writers advise beginners to practice writing essays and develop their creative writing skills. Another important step in writing an essay is establishing rapport with readers. The relationship between professional writers and their readers mirrors the dynamics of everyday speech, marked by intention, tone, and mutual interpretation. When a writer masters structure, stylistic nuance, and vivid description, the page becomes a canvas. Places, people, and events awaken in the reader's imagination. Anyone can develop essay writing skills and write interesting pieces that evoke readers' emotions, thoughts, and feelings. When you develop the ability to formulate your thoughts correctly, you improve your writing style. Every writer needs to understand how to draft and revise an essay. Be flexible. As you develop your essay writing skills, don't be afraid to try new approaches. Essay writing is a personal journey. The path that leads one writer to clarity may feel foreign to another. The key is to find the route that resonates with you.